Pat Mahomes hurt last night. They're thinking it's a dislocated kneecap. We had Michael Lombardi on in the first hour. He said he's never seen that many orthopedic surgeons pop off on Twitter like last night. Everybody was guessing and expecting what Pat Mahomes has happened. And that's going to happen when the face of the league right now, Pat Mahomes, who's on 4 or 5 national commercials, gets injured on a Thursday night game, in a game that's pretty much a throwaway game, especially whenever they're going to get the big win over the Broncos. Oh.
Swallowed a bug?
I think I just did. I think I just swallowed a bug. Dead.
Choked on a jelly bean?
Yeah. Guy got me right there. That was a wild scene right there, man. I didn't think I was going to make it through. I thought that was my last breath. My last word was going to be talking about Pat Mahomes being hurt and it not being good for the NFL because he is the face of the NFL right now. I mean, he literally is. He's everywhere. Everybody's talking about how great he is because he is great. His style is a highlight reel style. Then he hurts his ankle a couple weeks ago. Then it gets stepped on, and then it's even worse. Then he loses a couple games. And then last night, now his right knee is injured. They're like, it's a dislocated patella potentially. I had that injury. It is very, very difficult to come back from if you don't get the surgery just because it's a nagging pain. So if you're having a nagging pain in your left ankle and a nagging pain in your right knee, and a lot of your ability is your mobility and the ability to extend plays, I mean, that's going to be something he's going to have to really deal with. We're about to learn a lot about Pat Mahomes, not only in the next couple of weeks as he has to rehab this thing and get back on the field, but once he gets back, he is going to be in excruciating pain. I mean, it is going to hurt bad, and I don't know what they're going to be able to do, but I feel for the guy.
Do you subconsciously favor that too? Like you
have to.
That's what I'm saying. Like how does he come back, and how is he the same guy if he's dealing with that every week?
That's like anytime you put on a Ben Roethlisberger walking boot, like everybody, they're like, we're going to put you in a boot because it's like a cast. It immobilizes it, but it also gives you a chance to be mobile and move and not be just like put up in crutches or anything like that. But what often happens is your hip gets hurt, right? Because you're making up for the boot, so you're adjusting your hip to walk with it. It's like anytime you have a pain in somewhere, you're trying to make up for it on somewhere else, and then it's just affecting something else, whether it's realignment of your spine and your hips. That can cause problems everywhere. And now he has a bum wheel on his left with the ankle, and now he has a bum knee on the right. It's like that is going to be difficult for him to overcome. But I would argue if any player was to overcome this type of situation, it would be the guy who can throw it 75 yards from sitting Native American style. I would assume that's the guy that could do it, but this is tough. This isn't good. And the AFC is now, just like Michael Lombardi said, wide open yet again. Not that the Chiefs are playing dominant football. I think we all just assumed with their talent at the end of the year, they'd be able to figure it out. But I think the AFC is now much more wide open, which is good news for the Indianapolis Colts.
So you talked about it with your surgery, how they had to build up the groove again, and a lot of people were talking about it on the internet. So like when he comes, if the worst or best case scenario is he comes back in 3 weeks or whatever, and he'll wear a brace, but I was reading like there's a pretty decent chance that it pops out of that groove again.
Yeah. Without the surgery.
Should we, like, is there a chance of more damage there? Like, should the Chiefs think about sitting him down and think about the future, or do you worry about this year?
I have no idea. Nobody knows what actually happened. With me, the patella busted out of the groove. It banged up the right side of the groove, so it was just bouncing around on the outside of my knee, basically. We didn't know it was a fully dislocated kneecap. We knew that my kneecap and patella looked like it was in a weird place, but we didn't fully know until after when I got the MRI. And when the Dr. Clotwhite here in Indianapolis, Indiana, great surgeon, by the way. He's done 3 surgeries for me. He just doesn't have that big of a notable name, but he's done an incredible job. He looked at me, and I told him at this point I was already retiring, right? I skipped the Pro Bowl because of how bad my knee hurt every time I kicked the ball. And if I was going to play in a Pro Bowl, I wanted to be good, so I'd have to train for another couple weeks. And every time I could train, I couldn't walk because every time I kicked with the dislocated kneecap, it was aggravated so hard I couldn't walk. I was I don't want to say bedridden, but I basically was. I was just laying down. Anytime I had to kick, I would just go home and I'd lay in my bed and ice that thing because it hurt so bad because my kneecap was bouncing around on the outside. But he looked at me and he said, are you retirement real? Or are you thinking you come back? I was like, I'm about done with it at least for the near future. So at least a year or two, I am definitely out. My mind is made up. He was like, okay, well, there's 2 different surgeries we can do for you here. We can either build that thing up if you're planning on coming back, or we can just make it a standard. And I was like, well, I don't think I'm going to come back. He was like, okay, does the surgery. Afterwards, he said, hey, you're good to come back, by the way. We went ahead and did it. He's like, almost like, you're welcome. Like, we had you out anyways. We're going to think for you here. But they had to rebuild the groove to put that thing back. And then they had to pull out the part of the groove, the chunk that was just bouncing around in my knee. And that thing was the size of a little marble. It was just bouncing around. So there's a lot that can happen in there, especially when you're dealing with the patella, which is the point man, basically, for your entire, if you look at your knee as just like a basketball team, the patella is the point man that's kind of holding it all together. And the patella is the kneecap. And as soon as that gets off, everything can change. So let's assume there's going to be strained ligaments. Let's assume that there's going to be a lot of other things happening. I'm no orthopedic surgeon, but it is a painful situation. And if he comes back in 3 weeks, which is what they're saying, I will be very eager to kind of watch how he handles that. I think games he might be able to get through it, but his work weeks are going to be tough, which means the offense is probably going to struggle because he won't be getting as much reps in practice. But when you're Patrick Mahomes, maybe you can get through it.
Well, and Lombardi mentioned it too. It's not like he's coming back to some great offensive line. Like it stands to reason that he's still going to be taking hits when he comes back, and he's going to have to protect it, any way he can.
Yeah, I have no idea what they're going to do there.